Welcome to the Multidimensional Intelligence Podcast. I am your host, your trusted voice of transformation, Clifton Pettyjohn. Join me as I engage in ingenious conversations with top creators from around the world who have embraced their dimensions of intelligence within their professional, personal, and spiritual paths of transformation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Multidimensional Intelligence Podcast, where I have conversations with top creators from around the world, and we discuss how they have unlocked the dimensions of their intelligence. Now, you might say, well, how did they unlock the dimensions of their intelligence? That's the awesomeness about it, is that everyone has their own story. But I believe that a lot of us can relate to either part of some of their stories, all of some of their stories. We can relate. And if we can get to the space where we can relate, then we can begin to understand and connect with our own personal intelligence. Each and every one of you has a divine intelligence, as Elliot Carlisle says, or you have a personal intelligence. You have an inward intelligence that's connected to your DNA. That intelligence can't be tapped into if you are stuck in a dimension of intelligence that you were taught that you may not fit into. So that's why I'm having these conversations, because I want these conversations to begin to unlock, I guess, the portal or to begin to introduce you to the portal for you to travel to your own intelligence. For you to travel to your own intelligence. And in the midst of you traveling to your intelligence, you'll find out you don't have to go far because it's inside of you. My name is Clifton Pettyjohn. I am your trusted voice of transformation. I teach creators how to transform their lives through embracing the entirety of their best self. And that those multi-dimensions of intelligence are connected to your best self. All right, but let's do our breathing exercises. Take a deep breath in. Hold it. Breathe out. Oh, that felt so good. One more time. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out. Don't you feel lighter? Don't you feel more aware? Don't you feel more of purpose? Don't you just feel like now you just can conquer the world? Why? Because you're present. You are present. What breathing did was it caused you to pause for a minute. It caused your mind to recalibrate, to forget about everything that you're thinking about from your past, all the energy that you devote to. Well, if I hadn't done this right, if I had just said this, if I had just done that, if I can just get one more conversation, I'm pulling that energy. We're not feeding that anymore. We're not going to feed that anymore because there's nothing we can do about that anymore, but we're going to bring it to the present. Then we're going to go to that future that we keep hoping for. But the reality is we haven't been present enough to build. So we're going to grab that energy. We're going to merge it with the energy of our past. We're going to merge it with the energy of our present, grab those three things together, create that synergy. That synergy is you. That is you. That is the power of who you are. That is your best self. That is you present. And the thing is that you don't know what can be accomplished when you are consistently present, because we've only been consistently absent. That might not be all of you, but I know I'm talking to myself, and I know I'm talking to a lot of you. A lot of us are consistently absent from the present. So imagine how powerful our minds could be if we could lock our minds here in the present. And we don't have to imagine that. That's the whole purpose of this show. The whole purpose of this show is to keep us focused here on the present. So I thank each and every one of you for tuning in. I thank you for your support. I thank you for the reviews. I thank you for the downloads. I thank you for it all. I appreciate you for sharing the podcast. Thank you to my A1 Day Ones, to those who came a little later and have been positive and supportive, even those who may not have a positive review of the podcast, but have taught me something that I could apply to make the podcast even greater. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm forever grateful. So let's get to tonight's show, today's show, whenever you're listening to it. I don't want to hold you very long. All right, everyone, help me welcome Dr. Stephanie Hutchins to the show. Stephanie, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks so much for having me this evening.
Awesome, awesome. Now, listening audience, you know I'm transparent. I share everything with you guys. This is Stephanie's second appearance on the show, but it's the only one that you guys will see because I forgot to hit record the first time that we came together to record. So I really appreciate her being willing to come back and not just speak to me this time, but speak to the entire audience this time. So let's make sure that we are running the numbers up on this episode and supporting her in whatever way that we are able to support her. All right, Stephanie. So, you know, we start with an icebreaker question. Okay. So the icebreaker question I'm going to choose tonight, I'm looking down here. Let me see. Okay, here we go. If there was a song to describe the current stage of your life, what would that song be and why?
Wow. So, and I can't remember the name of the singer, but the song is called My Life, actually. And I really want to go and look at it because it's really such a powerful, I'm going to look it up literally right now so your listeners can know, because this is a go-to song whenever I need, yes, I knew her name had the name Rose. Her name is Pam Rose. And the song is called My Life. And I love this song because it just reminds me that it's a song about my life and the way I want to live my life without having regrets, and always just embracing each moment and just living my life to the fullest. And I actually was introduced to this song when I was listening to the book. Oh, I'm not going to go and look up something else. The book, The One Thing. Yeah, the book, the audiobook version of The One Thing. And I forget the author's name, and I'm not going to go on Audible and look it up now, but they actually start off the book with that song. And so I just felt it was very profound in many ways because in my coaching practice, we focus a lot on goal setting and chunking goals down and focusing on the one thing that could make the greatest difference in your life, at that moment in time. So I found it to be very fitting that they opened that book with the song. And now whenever I'm just needing sort of and I love singing. I'm not a great singer, but I love singing out loud to the song. And it really is a great motivator for me. So I encourage you guys to look into it.
Awesome. I've written it down because I'm going to be checking it out after the show. Now, listen, to keep that same theme, now we're going to allow you to introduce yourself in just a few minutes, but to keep the same theme of a song, I'm going to play a game that I have not played on this podcast in forever. And the title of that game is word association. So I have 3 words. I'm going to give you one word at a time, and you can either sing with that song with that word in it, or you can tell me the first thing that comes to mind when you think about the word that I say to you.
Okay. Oh boy. And just so you know, audience, he's throwing me completely different questions than last time. So I am like, whoa.
It's going to be fun. I'm telling you, it's going to be fun. You don't have to sing, but you are welcome to sing if you want to. All right. So it's only 3 words. Sometimes I've done 6, I've done 8. So I'm just going to hit you with 3 because it's kind of, like she said, this was not anything that I prepared her for. So the first word is goals. Goals.
Oh, when I think of goals, I got to say a person's name, Jim Rohn. And so He was not a singer, to my knowledge, but when I think of goals, I think of Jim Rohn, and he has since passed away, but he is my go-to for, business books and business philosophy books and just books on just how to win at life. And I'm a huge fan of goal setting. So even though I never met the man in person, he's who I go to when I'm just needing a reminder of, just staying on track and and needing to pivot. Whenever I need to pivot, I go to him. So
Awesome. See how easy the game is?
I was like, oh no, I'm not ready.
So the second word is meditation.
Wow. So meditation. I guess I'm thinking of people when I think of these words. So when I think of meditation, the first person that's popping into my mind is Pema Chodron. And I'm a huge fan of hers. So I am an avid listener of audiobooks, and I have hundreds of them in my Audible account. And I love Pema's work. And she is the one that introduced me to Ton Glen meditation, which is one of my favorite forms of meditation. And Ton Glen is a practice where on each in-breath, you are taking in the pain and discomfort of someone you're either thinking of in that moment or someone you're in the presence of in the moment. So you breathe in their pain and discomfort, and when you exhale, you're imagining that you're sending them relief. And it's one of my most favorite forms of meditation. And she's who I learned it from, even though I haven't met her either. Many of my mentors I've never met. And yeah, so she's somebody I associate with meditation.
Awesome. Now you bring up a great point there before we get to the last word. You said many of my mentors I have not met, and that is a concept that I try to drive into the lives of many people, because sometimes we have become so traditionalized that we feel like we have to physically be able to touch our mentors, not even realizing that all we need to do is listen to their work, read their work, watch them, watch how they move, some of the business decisions they made. If you're into real estate, some of the real estate moves that they made. That is mentoring 101. So I'm glad you brought that point across. Now, the third word, I think you'll really like this word. This is one of my favorite words. And that word is transformation.
Mm. Huh? I love that word too. It's like, and actually it's not a person this time, it's a thing. Whenever I think of transformation, I think of butterflies. And I think about how they were created from something entirely different, a caterpillar. And the caterpillar had to completely, in many ways, dissolve and become another being entirely to transform into a butterfly. And we'll be talking about my book and my work tonight. And my book is called Transformation After Trauma. And a lot of people, they spend their many months and years usually cycling through their trauma and re-experiencing the pain from their trauma because they're trying to hold on to what they lost and what will never be again now that the trauma's occurred. But what I encourage people to look at is that now that this thing, in many ways, terrible thing has happened, it gives you the opportunity to become someone you never were before. And by letting go of that person that you were before, it allows you the opportunity to reinvent yourself. And, if the caterpillar tries to hold on to what it what it is and what it once was, it will never be that beautiful butterfly that will be able to fly. And I consider flying, I attribute it with freedom, being able to move freely from one place to another. And I look at that ability to grow wings to be the ultimate form of transformation. And I believe that same miraculous ability of transformation is possible for us too.
A butterfly can never be if they try to hold on to that previous state that they once were. We could end the show right there because I mean, honestly, like just thinking about that, I think about in my own personal life, the times that I was trying to hold on to what I was so familiar with and what I had become comfortable with, even though I know that it no longer served me, even though I knew there was greater for me, it was like so much comfort and security in it because at least I knew the results. But if we're ever going to be able to let go and fly, we have to be willing to embrace that unknown. So let's talk about that unknown. Let's talk about your personal journey. I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. You can go as far back as you would like to go to how you got to who you are today, your own personal transformation.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. So let me first start off by saying that, so today, one of, my main missions in life is to work with individuals who have experienced trauma and give them hope that they'll be able to come out on the other side of their deepest and darkest times, and not only survive, but thrive after some of their most devastating experiences in life. And the reason I'm so passionate about doing this work is because I experienced many, many dark years in my life and just thought that that's what life was it's just a painful experience. And so I experienced a lot of trauma during my childhood and particularly my adolescent years. And a lot of the trauma I experienced was at the hands of people that I was supposed to trust and that were supposed to love me, but instead they hurt me. And then when I was 24, I finally found a man, the first man who made me feel that I was lovable and who just loved me in ways I never imagined. And then a year later, I found him dead. And I just, my one bright light just went out. And so here I'd been so scared about what was lurking around every corner because for years I had experienced so much pain. And then I got this glimmer of hope, this man who brought so much joy into my life and love into my life. And then like that, just in one day, he's gone. And my world just came crashing down at that moment. And I reached some very low points. I wasn't bathing for days. I couldn't work. I was just, in many ways, just falling apart. And what happened is that, because my work wasn't working at that time. My mother was supporting me financially during that time, in a time where she didn't have the means to do so, but she did. But I just kept falling further down, and I was becoming more self-destructive. And finally she put her foot down and said, "Enough is enough, Stephanie. You have to get help, or I'm not going to be able to continue to support you." And that was, of course, very hard for me, but it was actually one of the best things that she could have ever have done for me, because I don't even know if I would still be here today if it wasn't for her drawing the line in the sand. And when she drew that line in the sand for me, I had to do some deep reflection and look to see if I wanted to stay where I was at or if I wanted to get out. And what I decided is I wanted to get out. And what that meant is I had to create a plan to get out. And so I couldn't just go right from, not working to just working and functioning every day if I was barely surviving. So I had to, like, literally little steps at a time, had to begin the healing process. And so what I did every day is I set small goals for myself. In my journal, I would write my goals for the day, and they were very simple. And I say quote unquote simple because for me they were very difficult, but my initial goals were to bathe, were to brush my teeth, were to take out the trash. And what something happened once I started doing some of that basic self-care again. What it did is I started to feel better. And as I started to feel better, I became more confident that I could move on after this devastating loss. And as I started to take care of myself, I was able to start working and going back to school. And eventually, I found myself in teaching on the college level, and I found I was really good at it. And I spent 12 years teaching mostly anatomy and physiology, so about the human body. And what I started to do from my years of learning and teaching about the human body is I started to see how resilience shows up in nature and how it shows up in our body, and about how there are so many examples in nature and in our own bodies of how immense stress can actually result in immense growth. So take our muscles, for example. Our muscles actually can't grow unless it experiences micro traumas, unless it is like has extreme stress placed on it. And there's many examples of this in our body. And so what I started to see is that what happened over time is I was able to start reframing my trauma. And instead of looking at all that I had lost and all that would never be, I started to look at how strong I must be to have survived it all. And I wanted to start spreading that message of hope, because people who see me today that don't know my story only see the person with a PhD and this great career and a great home and great relationships, and I travel the world. They see this person and they don't realize what it took to get to this point. And they just assume that I've been gifted with all of these things, and they don't realize the actual struggle that it took to get to this point. And so what I've done is I've become much more vulnerable in sharing my story with people, so that they know that on their deepest and darkest days, that there is a light, and day always follows night. So to know that the light is coming, that day is coming, but also that that it is possible for them to live a beautiful life on the other side of their trauma. And so that's why I started my coaching practice, Serotinous Life, and wrote my book, Transformation After Trauma, to give people the tools that I used to be able to heal, so they can incorporate them into their own life.
So much to unpack. So much to unpack. I want to start with, because you said something that I know a lot of people can relate to. And they may not relate to it in the sense of that it was a person that they found that had passed away. But it may have been a circumstance, a situation. Maybe it was a job. Maybe it was the support of a local system, and then they had to be transplanted to another space. Going through all of that, like back during that time, and then here's your mother. And your mother, as you said, she's supporting you, but then she got to the space where she understood that her support had to remain, yet the execution of that support had to change. what was your mindset when she first came to you about the change and the support? Was it ever a time you felt like, oh, wow, now she's against me, or here it is, my world is just ending now? Is it ever a time you dealt with that? And if you did, how did you get yourself to understand and begin to shift your perspective in relationship to that?
Mhm. So yeah, it's interesting. I've been reflecting on this quite a bit because my second book is coming along really well, and I open up the book with that story, and I actually titled the introduction "Enough is Enough," for, when she said that to me, and how difficult that was for me. And I was, I'll be honest and say I was very suicidal at that time. And part of me just wanted to just say, well, my mother's giving up on me. And so what's the point to keep going? And, but what I did is over the next few days, I didn't leave my house or anything for like 4 days after that. And what I did is I really started to think about, how hard that must have been for her to do that, to draw that line in the sand and say, I'm not going to help you unless, you stop self-destructing and you start getting help. I realized that that must have been, it must have been extremely painful for her to do, especially knowing that um, I was struggling with even wanting to survive. But what she had to make a decision is like, because I wasn't doing it, even though I had reached that really low point, I wasn't getting the help. And part of it was that I had unfortunately found myself with a therapist that sort of re-traumatized me in many ways. And so I was scared of getting help and I really didn't know where to turn. And so I looked at like just not only how difficult that must have been for her, but also like, I just had to ask, like, I was sat there and reflected on everything that was happening in my life at that time. And I was drinking all the time. I had put on an immense amount of weight. Um, I had sleep apnea and high cholesterol before the age of 30. And I was just falling apart and realized that I had a choice. She was giving me a choice. I could either, keep falling down further, or she was giving me the option to get out. And what I had to realize that this was a lifeline that she was extending to me. And I really have always believed that the universe works in certain ways, and people and circumstances are brought into our life for a reason. And I feel like at that moment, she came at a really critical point. And I don't know if I really don't think I would still be here if she didn't do it. And so I really am grateful every single day that she was willing to be immensely uncomfortable and cause herself pain for, to have herself like do this. It was really hard for her. And I am, again, grateful every single day that she was, dealt with that discomfort to save me.
So powerful, because we need positive reinforcement in our life like that. We don't need people that's going to, baby us, through that process the entire time. We need people that are going to allow us to go through the process. And then when it's time to say, okay, now you have more strength inside of you. And that's what I love about it, is that she was able to recognize the strength that was in you, even though you may not have seen it at that time. And we all need people with that x-ray vision that can see past everything that we're presenting to them at that moment and begin to look internally at what has been inside of us the entire time. Now, here's something else you said that I think is extremely important. You said you started setting simple goals. Simple goals. Have you seen that a lot of people get discouraged throughout their process because the goals that they're setting are not realistic for them? And if I'm a person that's not that, if I'm a person that's setting unrealistic goals, how do I begin to take a step back and begin to bring forth or to create realistic goals that are obtainable for me, and yet at the same time challenge me to grow and develop?
So this is a very common issue that many people have, is that they set goals that are really unreasonable see, like, it's one thing to say, so I'm an avid hiker and mountain climber. And it's one thing to say you want to climb Mount Everest, for example, but depending where you're at, physically and mentally, that may be potential years away. And so, or let's even take another kind of goal, going and getting your doctorate or starting a business. All of these things can be potentially multi-year goals. But you've got so many days and hours and minutes in between that time frame of reaching that goal, that it's going to be so easy to give up if you don't break it up into small steps. And so what I encourage people to do is, whenever they're looking at these bigger goals, if they find at any point in time they're wanting to give up, that I really encourage them to think about what is a micro win that you could achieve. So, like, for example, if you are, I guess I'm going to stick with mountain climbing right now. If you want to climb a huge mountain, what can you do? Like, what is one thing that you can do today that will just get you just even a little bit closer? Could it be that you go out for a walk or a jog or run? Or maybe it's that you look up the kind of boots that you would need, or, something, if it's you going back to school, looking at where you're at now and what is one thing that you could do today. Not something that can happen years from now, but literally one thing that you can do today that will get you even just one little step closer. And then what I encourage people to do is look at then the next day, what is one more thing that they can do that day, and literally just chunk it down into day tight compartments. And then as you start getting momentum, maybe you can start setting like a week goal. Like, this week I'm going to, if you're developing a business, you're going to spend X amount of time on your business plan or on your website this week, and tracking it. But anytime you start losing your momentum and you start getting discouraged, I think it's always going back to, okay, what is the one thing that I could do today that will make even just a small difference? And it's really important. Like, another book I love is The Compound Effect. And why I love The Compound Effect is it's based on this whole concept that just small little steps that we take every single day can accumulate over time to drastic changes. And, and I know people want to achieve everything like right now. But I think it's important to like always step back and recognize that that's just many times not possible. And instead just chunking it down into what's manageable in this one moment that you can do,
Now, one more thing I want to talk about before we transition. You said something that I think is very important, because we're at a space in time where a lot of people are seeing the value of therapy. Okay. But you talked about your situation, about your experience with a therapist that re-traumatized, you caused you to revisit some of your traumas, not in such a positive manner. How does one pick the right therapist? And there may not be an answer to that. I was blessed that my first encounter with one was spot on. But how does one begin to navigate to a therapist that they need for the type of trauma that they've been through?
So, yeah, I don't know if there's things that you can, especially in today's climate, I mean, the therapists are so tapped out. So many, it's like, who can you get access to, is the bigger issue. And I think when people are trying to find supports, like a therapist, I think you need to be open to the idea that the first therapist you meet with, or the second or the third even, might not actually work out. And I don't say approach your first or second or third therapist with the expectation that it will be an immense fail, but just be open to the idea that not everyone's going to be a good fit for you. I mean, you're sharing some very intimate details of your life with these individuals, and you have to really feel connected to them. And so, and I don't even think it's about finding someone even necessarily that specializes, like in my case, in trauma. Do you know the therapist that has served me the best she doesn't specialize in trauma. But the reason I love her so much is because she has always acted as a partner in my journey. She's never been one of these clinicians that act as though she is like, the holder of all answers and she's going to guide me, she's always instead walked side by side. I just felt like she was a partner with me, and she never pushed me faster or farther than I was ready to go. And I don't really think that there was anything on her profile, because I was actually, the one I found was the one that my mother, when she told me enough is enough, you have to get help, she had given me a name of a therapist. My sister had asked around, and this person that she gave to me when she said enough is enough is actually the therapist that changed everything for me. And again, when they were looking for her, and if you look at her profile today, there is nothing that screams out loud and said she is the perfect person for somebody who's experiencing trauma. But I took a chance, and it ended up being, she was just perfect for me. And so I think it's important to be open to people with different backgrounds, and that they don't necessarily have to have, in many ways, all of these credentials to be of benefit, because a lot of times all we're needing is a partner to share our life experiences with, and somebody who can be a witness to our story and can be an objective observer, and who has distance from it. So I don't really think that necessarily takes people with experience other than being able to sit with somebody and be able to be an empathetic witness for them. And so, yeah, I guess it's really just about, I guess it's a lot of trial and error, and not giving up if you find somebody who is not good for you. Just making that break when you realize that it's not a healthy fit, and just being open to trying someone else out that might be a better fit for you.
Definitely great advice. Now we're going to transition, and I want to talk about your business. But before we talk about your business, well, I guess it's a segue into talking about your business. I want you to share with us your ideal client.
Oh, interesting. So you guys know, again, this is a completely different interview tonight. So it's really wonderful, actually. I was like, oh, I'm getting different kinds of questions. My ideal client. So my ideal client, so I am not a clinician. So I am not a therapist. And so I do not specialize. I am not for people who have just experienced trauma and are looking for somebody to process the trauma with. I am a life coach. And so what coaches do is they help you identify where you want to be and figure out a plan to get you from where you are currently to where you want to be. So how do you fill in those gaps? So coaches don't do little to no work of going backward. They look at where you're at right now and where you want to be and help you devise a plan to get there. And so for me, my ideal client would be somebody who has experienced trauma or extreme hardship in their life, and they are overall surviving every day. You know, they're working, they have relationships, and they're overall functioning in day-to-day life, but they're not really feeling like they're living the life that they want to live, and they feel they're being held back in some way, and they feel that it's likely their traumatic experiences that have held them back. And so and they want to like break that chain and have that, you know, the trauma stop holding them back from the life they're wanting to live. And so those are the clients that I work with, where they're functioning, but they could do better. And so we work on the belief systems that are holding them back, and really reframing their experiences so that they can move forward. So I guess I'm also need clients that want to move forward and want to experience life in a way that's different than what they're experiencing now.
That's great. That's great. Yes, it is. I just go with the flow. Like I feel a different flow tonight. So that's why it's like totally different than the other night.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the flow that I feel tonight. So let's talk about your business now. I want you to tell us how you came up with the name of your business, the whole concept of your business. And then we're going to talk about your book.
All right. So again, my business name is called Serotinous Life. And a lot of people are like, Stephanie, why did you choose a word in your business that people don't even know how to pronounce or they've never even heard of? Like, people think that was an immense fail on my part. But I am like dug my heels into the ground, and I'm sticking with it because it's deeply meaningful to me. And so, again, I've been a biology professor for many years. And so serotiny is a biological concept. And if you look at my business logo, it's got a pine cone in it. And it's because there are pine cones that are considered to be serotinous cones. And serotinous cones are found on trees like the giant sequoias out in the West Coast in the United States. And what's interesting about trees like giant sequoias that have serotinous cones is that they can only open these cones and release their seeds if they experience an environmental stressor like fire. And so the giant sequoias are actually the largest trees on Earth, and they're threatened with extinction right now. And one of the reasons they're being threatened with extinction is because of the years that humans prevented forest fires from moving through. We thought we were protecting these beautiful giants from trauma. But really what we were doing by protecting them from what we perceived was traumatic and harmful to their survival, we were actually preventing their future growth. Because we didn't allow them to experience hardship, they weren't able to release their seeds and experience new growth. And so why I chose this concept of serotinous life for my business is because many of us, especially after we experience trauma, spend an immense amount of energy trying to prevent other hurtful experiences in the future, because we're afraid of experiencing more pain. But in reality, some of our greatest struggles trigger some of our most immense growth in our life. And I have experienced a lot of what people consider success in my life, and they're surprised at how young I accomplished a lot of what I have in my life. And I really look at all that I've done and all that I've experienced, and at the age I experienced it all, and I know that it's in direct proportion to my trauma. Like, I feel that the more struggle you have to endure, the greater the reward is going to be on the other side of it. And so I encourage people, instead of trying to resist the struggle, to embrace the struggle and what could happen on the other side. And you have to know, it's not like I say, I welcome trauma in my life, but I don't spend an immense amount of energy resisting circumstances that are completely out of my control in many ways. And so that's why I chose my business name. And it's also why I chose my book title to be Transformation After Trauma, because it's again, what I feel is completely possible after really stressful experiences is a transformation.
First, to the business name. To have put so much thought and detail into it. Like, as you were explaining it, I was like, wait a minute, we are them pine cones. And sometimes I always talk about how sometimes the people that love us think they're protecting us because they don't want us to experience trauma. They don't want us to experience hurt, disappointment. So they say, just go to high school, go to college, get you an everyday job, live a comfortable life, not realizing that there is so much inside of us that we're ready to explore, but sometimes we buy into that concept. That was so powerful, how we thought we were helping them by preventing those forest fires, but in the long run, we actually were stopping them from growing. That's something to really think about. I'm sitting here thinking about, even in my own personal life, like, who have I stopped some people from growing based upon that? That is so powerful. Now, you talked about nature and the human body. I'm big on grounding. I am a avid grounder. I feel like we don't touch nature enough to understand the cycle of life. Like, I don't think that we really have grasped that concept. And as I said, I'm big on grounding. I'm big on meditation and other things as well. But grounding is so important to me because I don't know how to explain it, but it's like when you are touching nature, when you become one with nature, it's almost like you have a new sense of life. Is that how you feel at times when it comes to nature and the human body? And how did you develop that love for that?
So, yeah, I feel immersing ourselves in nature is one of the most therapeutic things that we can do. And actually, after, my mother put her foot down and I had to figure out how I was going to heal, part of my, I don't want to say part of it, a huge part of my healing journey was hiking. And every week, I I spent at least once a week, I would be out for a full day in nature, and it in many ways helped me to transform my life, because I think nature teaches us so much. It helps us to, one, remove us from the trap we get into in our mind. But it also, we get to see new life, and just the sensations that we can experience from the changes in temperature and the wind and the sounds from the birds and the leaves, and it gives us a sense of connectedness to something greater than ourselves. And I think that's how we can sometimes lose hope, is when we feel that we're just sort of meandering through this world, isolated and on our own. And I really feel, at least I have experienced myself, that when I'm in nature and I really feel connected to it, I feel that I'm part of something bigger than myself. And there's immense power in nature and just seeing life abounding around me. And to see resilience, the biologist in me loves seeing resilience in nature. Like, I love studying trees. I love looking at tree roots and how trees will navigate around roots, how their roots will navigate around obstacles like rocks or other trees, and how they will bend and twist and turn to access sunlight. And in many ways, they're immovable, but what they do is they still do what they need to survive. And by immersing myself in nature, I got to see that if trees, for example, that aren't able to escape their circumstances in many ways, if they figure out a way to survive, then I can survive as well. And so it's the grounding, it's the being connected to something greater than myself, and also the reminders of resilience in nature, and knowing that all living things, like the biologist in me knows that, on a very basic level, all living organisms share the same common elements. And if resiliency can be seen in plants, it can also be seen in animals like ourselves. And it really, it changed my life being in nature. And that's why still, even today, I make sure that I spend at least one day every week, where the majority of it is spent immersed out in nature. But I don't think that everybody needs to do that. We can do that by just even going out for a walk, or just sitting out on the porch and breathing fresh air and taking a moment to listen to the sounds and feel nature, the temperature and smells and the sound, sounds and sights, and just take it in. And just, it's a beautiful way to experience life, by experiencing other life around you.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And as you said, it makes you feel connected to something greater than you. And I know that even in my loneliest moments, if I can get out in nature, I guess because it's being connected to that greater than me at that moment, that loneliness is gone. Like it's like I don't know how to describe it, but it has been truly pivotal for my life, so I'm big on it. And like you said, I tell people, you don't have to do it the way that I do it. And I don't do it the way that other people do it, so you just have to find your space with it. And you didn't get to hear our introduction. You'll get to hear it when your show airs. One of the first things I have everybody do is to breathe in, hold it, breathe out. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out, because it brings you present to where you are right now. You're not worried about the past. You're not thinking about the future. You are present. And I think that's what nature has done for me. It has calmed me and brought me present. So now here's what I want to ask you. You've talked a little bit about your book. I want to give you space to talk a little more about your book. And I want you to tell me why I should purchase your book.
So my main audience is, of course, aimed towards individuals who have experienced tremendous hardship in their life. But it's really a tool for anybody who's just feeling that life is just testing them and pushing their limits, and they're really just needing different tools for experiencing life, in a different way than they are now. And in my book, I do share my experiences as far as my traumas, but I tried very hard when I was writing the book to not take people too deep into any of my traumatic experiences. I just wanted to go far enough so they could understand where I was at, and and the level of pain I was experiencing, so they could understand why the tools I used were so beneficial. And so what I do is I filled the book with all sorts of tools that I used, like meditation and hiking and yoga and creative expression, and journaling, and just so many things that brought me relief. And I talk about why they were so useful to me and how people can incorporate them into their own life. And really, my book it's not about bringing people into darkness. It's about showing them the light that's possible after immense pain. And so really, I tried to keep my book very hopeful throughout. And so it's really for anybody who's needing a shot of hope and tools for being able to navigate difficult days. And what's interesting is the tools I use changed throughout my life. And so I wanted to give people a variety of tools, because what works for one person may not work for another, and what may work at one point in your life may not work at another point. And so yeah, I really just give a lot of tools, and I encourage you to check it out. And I have 3 versions: ebook, paperback, and audiobook, and they're found on all the major book platforms. But probably the easiest place to go would be Amazon, because it has all 3 versions. So you can type in Transformation After Trauma, and the subtitle is Embracing Post-Traumatic Growth. And yeah, and reach out to me if you have any questions along the way once you're reading.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, we are here at the end of our conversation. So here's what I want to do. I want to give you an opportunity to give everyone your social media handles, your website, how they can contact you if they're looking for a life coach. I also want you to I want you to take us home with something that's going to get us up out of our seat and have us motivated, ready to run on after what we've experienced in life.
Mm. So probably the best place to reach me, the easiest, would be Facebook. It's my most used platform. And it'd be easiest to type in my name, Stephanie M. Hutchins, PhD. But you can also find me on Facebook at Serotinous Life. On Facebook, you'll see my website is serotinouslife.com if you have trouble spelling it. And yeah, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn as well, but Facebook and my website, best places to reach out to me. And I guess I'm going to approach it a little different than just movement. I think what I want to say is that what's even more important than movement is just being patient with yourself and meeting yourself where you're currently at. And it's so easy for the rest of the world to tell us the pace at which we should be moving and where we should be at different stages in our life. And I think what you should do is really look at, where are you at now, and where do where are you at, and are you happy there? And if you're not, what is one thing that you can start doing today? And what I tell people is if they're not sure where to start and what aspect of their life, career, family, friends, I say to pick health, because if you don't feel well, you're not going to do a good job in really any aspect of your life. So I encourage you today to take one step that can improve one aspect of your life. And again, if you're not sure what area, pick health. And in that one area of health, pick one part of health. So pick your sleep, pick the level of, your water intake, what you're eating, whatever. Pick one thing and make one improvement to it today, and just something that'll benefit you. And don't make it big. If you're only getting 6 hours of sleep a night, try 6.5 hours. tonight. If you're not exercising at all, go for a 5 or 10-minute walks, just something small that you can do. But again, what I can't say it enough, to be patient with yourself in whatever path you're on, because none of our paths to reaching any goal are linear, and there's going to be, hills and valleys, and you're going to get bumps and bruises along the way. And so just be patient with yourself and be patient with the process along the way.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us on tonight and your willingness to come back and join us again on tonight. I assure you, we did record tonight, so you don't have to worry about me. Try to get you to come back on again for a session. We actually did get this one recorded, but thank you so much. To the listening audience, thank each and every one of you. I appreciate you. Without you, there would be no podcast. So I thank you for listening. I thank you for subscribing. I thank you for leaving your feedback. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to text the word transformation to 302-208-9440. Again, 302-208-9440. All right? Listen, as I always say, create a great day, walk with purpose, and by all means, execute your vision. And don't forget to embrace your best self.
Oh, and I think about what is most useful to me in just navigating my days and trying to figure out moves I'm going to make in my life. I like to have an inventory of resources from my greatest mentors that I can turn to when I'm needing guidance. And two of my favorite mentors are Jim Rohn and Les Brown, two of my favorites. And so I have a collection of resources from both of them, particularly on YouTube and Audible. And what I encourage you to do yourself is for you to also find those mentors that really resonate with you. I really connect with the messages of Jim Rohn and Les Brown and many others, but those are two of my favorites. But maybe they won't resonate with you. And so what I encourage you to do is find others, in fields that you're wanting to learn more about that really speak to you and you connect with, and start collecting resources of theirs. And a great place to start is YouTube, because you can find a lot of free resources. And so, like, for example, if you're not familiar with Jim Rohn or Les Brown, I encourage you to search them on YouTube and see, well, do you like them or not? And so, Jim Rohn, he has since passed away, but he is a well-known business philosopher and has a lot of guidance out there on not only business, but goal setting and, setting financial goals, business goals, and just even, being our best self and even character development. And so type in Jim Rohn into YouTube, and you're going to get some of the most popular videos are going to come up. And if you like them, click save, and you can create a folder in YouTube and I title mine PMP, for personal and professional development. And I just save my videos there that I like. And so the other one that I really love is Les Brown. And I love him because he's got this powerful voice that just moves me, but he also has this laugh that just I love. And anytime he laughs, it just makes me laugh, and it just brightens my day. And so I particularly like, he's really great for giving me a shot of motivation. And so for him, I would go to YouTube and type in Les Brown motivation, and you'll get some of his best videos come up. But the other thing that'll happen is once you get these videos come up, you're going to see underneath similar types of videos, and you're going to get a whole host of others that are like these leaders in their fields. And you'll see that maybe you'll resonate with other people that come up. And then what I do is individuals that I really like their work, I'll then go on to Audible and look for their top work. So like Jim Rohn, my go-to in Audible is the Ultimate Jim Rohn Library by Nightingale Conant. And the same thing, I forget the name for Les Brown, but they also have a similar package for Les Brown where they put his greatest works together. And then what I do with both of them is based on the shift in mindset, or just, needing to stay on a certain path, I will look for the title of that chapter and then go to that specific thing. So I encourage you to start developing your set of resources that you can turn to for whether it's a shot of motivation, a shot of guidance, or just affirmation that you're on the right path, So good luck on your journey.
Well, there you have it. That's today's episode of the Multidimensional Intelligence Podcast. If you want to be notified of all future episodes while having access to previous episodes, simply subscribe through your preferred listening platform. Also, if you feel inclined, leave us a 5-star rating and review. For those who want to remain connected to me and all things that I have going on, text me at 302-208-9440. Again, 302-208-9440. Until next time, peace.